good judgment comes from experience, but experience comes from bad judgment. So, welcome the scars, welcome the hurdles, welcome, the brick walls and the doors that get shut, because those are all signs of growth and progression. For somebody to live 50 years of the same year over and over, that's not a life worth living.
Welcome. What up? To the Habits of the Few. What we got for them? Where we discuss habits, rituals, and mindset tactics that you can use to reach your version of success. Yeah. And now, here's your host, Mo Nabolsi.
I'm really thrilled to hear that you're persevering. That's phenomenal. And being able to grow at a time like this is, it's a testament to the ability of the human spirit. And it's just, I've seen and I've heard too many people fall flat on their face during this time, during the economic time and the shift in the new normal. And, to see people actually thrive is a blessing. So I love that, man. Why don't you give me a little bit about, why don't you give me the viewers a little bit about, just to give you perspective, I would say the majority is between 26 to 35 years of age, predominantly male. And from the feedback that I've gotten, a lot of these guys, they either want to succeed in the career path that they're choosing, or they're having complications with figuring out which avenue to take. How was it that you were able to figure out the path that has led you to your success today? And what kind of disciplines and mindsets that you had to develop and really nurture in the beginning to become the man that you are today? What did you have to go through from the start?
Well, thanks for giving me all the small questions right up front. First of all, what's up, bros? 25 to 35-year-old males. I wouldn't necessarily say like I've arrived by any means. I've learned more these last, really from March to where we're at now in terms of density of learning, and whether that be through scars or, through trophies. It's been, a season of just learning and growing and developing, and more than any other time that I've had in that, in that type of mindset. And that's the whole thing, is just, you got to have that growth mindset and understand, what the controllables and uncontrollables are. And that when you're in a situation that, you're holding a round block in your hand and staring at a square hole, like, all right, well, how are you going to adapt and overcome this? I think that there's a really good book on just the subject of resilience, and that's the title of the book, Resilience. I got it from one of our clients who's a financial planner local in the area, Rice Financial Group. If you guys look them up, Ian is phenomenal at mindset and growth, and knows, in the ins and outs of the financial business, but also, sets his business up from a mindset standpoint. And, if you're on the same page in terms of your morals and your mindset and your trajectory, then you can, reach for the stars and land on the moon, if not hit the stars and beyond. But so that Eric Greitens' book, Resilience, talks about, just what the scars do and that they're supposed to come. So, one of my takeaways from that is that, good judgment comes from experience, but experience comes from bad judgment. So, welcome the scars, welcome the hurdles, welcome, the brick walls and the doors that get shut, because those are all signs of growth and progression. For somebody to live 50 years of the same year over and over, that's not a life worth living. And that even times of elevation and success, that comes, by definition, a mountain is a peak with two valleys on each side. And so if you're struggling, you're going up, you're going to be hitting a peak. And if once you get to that height, business wise or even training wise, and to your ability or to whatever the market is flexible enough, and what your offerings are or what your training program gets you to, either you're going to be coming down and hit another valley that's going to be surrounded by another peak, or you adapt and continue to grow. And those trends, business wise or training wise, are what will indicate your long-term success. Ray Dalio has a lot of really good online. He's just a financial guru, but he's got some good basic like infographic quick snippets on YouTube on how economies fluctuate in these micro currents and micro fluctuations within the large waves over time, and such as business and such as training along with the economy. So if you can take those lessons from outside of your industry or outside of your wheelhouse and apply the principles to what you're doing, you're going to have success no matter what. But just keeping that growth mindset and welcoming the doors that get shut in your face, and those bruises and scars teach you lessons, because you're not going to touch a hot stove and get burned again, or you're a fool and you will. So it's just staying in that mindset and trying to stay within the margins of that, and also not go crazy at the same time when you do get burned.
Right. And I think I would say that's the most difficult is once you do get burned, I think it becomes a point to really make it apparent that I think at that point you become either strongly willful or you fall down and you can't get yourself back up. Yeah. And it's so true. And I think like a lot of people today more than ever, I have found to have a real brittle spirit. I think will is a means of adaptation. I mean, I always compare it to like a muscle. You want to get the muscle stronger, you have to tear it down, and then you got to feed it all the good stuff so that it can grow and adapt and so on and so forth. Right. So there's not much difference there. How did you develop, or let me ask you this, what made you decide to become a coach? Because I have found that the most successful coaches are the best students in their craft and just in life in general. And I know that you are an incredible student. So what was it that
last 15 to 20 seconds here, you've broken up and you're a little frozen there, buddy.
Oh, sorry. I have found that the best coaches in the world in any industry are some of the best students. And a lot of times I have found that the people that decide to be coaches never really wanted necessarily to become coaches. They have just positioned themselves in such a credible standpoint that people just started gravitating towards them. And I've noticed that people have naturally gravitated towards you, wanting to learn from you. What has led you to become a coach? Like, what was it? Was there like a point in time where like, this is what I want to do? Or was it like a myriad of a circumstance that kind of, it was like the universe and God and whatever you believe in was walking you towards that gate?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us have a unique gift that nobody else has, and you see that all the time in the social media world. Like, you're trying to be somebody else. You're never going to give your chance to actually be who you were meant to be yourself. And try to replicate other people. And I think that what my gift is, my passion. My passion is helping people just in general. And I found the best avenue for that and best outlet for me, for other people, was to help them, physically, help them, nutritionally, help them with their lifestyle, emotionally, and even spiritually goes in that. And any coach that tells you like, oh, there's no emotional or spiritual component to what they do. It doesn't necessarily have to be, the Bible or, the Quran or, the Mormon Bible. It doesn't have to necessarily be that in terms of that relationship. I think that, if you surround yourself with people that are like-minded in that sphere, you're only going to have better success. Nobody can serve everybody anyway. And even though there has to be a component to what you do as a coach to be, amicable and amiable and be able to mirror and match your people, if you're in a like-minded group, you're only going to accelerate that progress that much faster. So for me, it was just a scenario of, truthfully, it's like an addiction. Like, I love helping people. I love making sure that, showing somebody that, what their true, expression, their true abilities and their true potential can actually be through an avenue of physical training. And that has so much tapping into, the physiological stuff and everything else within that. And, some days, when I'm training people, it's about smashing some major kilos and hitting PRs and pushing yourself. And, other days it's just about therapy. It's just about working in. I'm not saying I'm a therapist. I'm just saying coming in and actually, touching a barbell, that's just a plus, right? And you're just trying to stack up as many pluses as you can. You come in, and I tell people all the time in our, our CrossFit memberships, not, in our personal training, and in our personal training too, that, if you come in and you just touch my front door, you got to put yourself a plus. We have people that have water bottles that walk around that have a T chart, and it's just plus, 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 minus, minus, minus for days that they did. So if you just stack up your average and improve your average of that, like you're going to be successful in, in what we offer here in our services and our program. But for me, again, it was just, scratching an itch of helping somebody and helping them realize their potential and showing them an avenue. And even if they don't work with me, as long-term as possible. And I think that a lot of coaches try and turn burn and get as much volume and smash as many sessions and get as many referrals as possible and just try to overcram their business and then thin themselves out and dilute their service and dilute their results and their reach, and coaches trying to be, the best in the world. Like, dude, why don't you be the best in your neighborhood first and then take it from there and build from there. But yeah, no, just to tap on that again, for me, it was just the reason that I had pursued this in, this is my 16th year as of June 1st. And, every year, every June, I look back and I analyze, like, all right, am I further into my goals? Am I continuing to help people? Am I improving in my learning? Am I growing as a business, growing, developing? Am I happy? Is my family thriving? And the amount of time I'm putting in this, like, so there's a lot of analysis into it, as opposed to just like, I talked to a coach just yesterday and asked him a little bit about what his business philosophies are and all that. He's like, what his plan was 6 months, 12 months down the road and how he wants to grow. I was like, oh yeah, no, just we'll see how it goes. I'm like, I don't like that answer. It's like straight up. You got to be thinking a little bit larger scale because there's so much information out there. And truthfully, it's kind of goofy that the fact that, my business exists just as hoops to jump through, so to speak, in the rough, analytic objective look at it, just so we can have a physical a semblance to even be at the same table with our ancestors physically. It's kind of goofy that, we create essentially fake work just so that we can maintain and compensate for, poor lifestyle or just, laziness growing up or lack of physical, ability and prowess from, how we grew up, all that stuff. Sorry, kind of tailed off there, but
no, I didn't even realize it. Like, I didn't even look at it from that perspective until you just said that. That's crazy.
Oh, fake work?
Yeah, that is crazy. That's exactly what's happening.
Oh yeah, my wife and I went traveling last summer, and we were on an island, and this was a little bit bigger island. And we were driving around to the other side of where we were staying, and I noticed like all these, because it's basically a volcano, ancient volcano, and so it's slammed just like any other island. And so what these ancient people had done is they built these yards, these brick fences that was it was probably 100 feet by 100 feet, and they were just scattered everywhere. And the amount of time it takes to you couldn't you couldn't just Amazon Prime, Jeff Bezos wouldn't helicopter drop you a rock fence. You had to build that with your sweat and your tears and your blood. And it either the work got done or it didn't. It was a 1 or a 0. Either you had field and you had crops and you were able to eat, your family survived and thrived and grew, or you just didn't, or you had to be a fisherman, whatever it was. But yeah, no, it's just the physical, requirements to navigate this world successfully are so much more of a necessary evil, I would say, compared to just a necessary survival in the past. But I mean, that doesn't change my take on it. Obviously I do the same thing. My lifestyle is, outside of training, outside the gym, is one of fairly sedentary outside of doing the yard work and, helping people move and blah, blah, blah. So
while we're on the subject for our local audience here, why don't you tell them a little bit about what it is that you do and how you can help them?
Oh, yeah. We're in Tualatin, Oregon. My gym's CrossFit BYB. Our weightlifting club is BYB Strength. So we just offer, a fantastic community of really hardworking people that, check their egos at the door and want to see results through our program, safety through our program, feel better, look better, perform better, and they want to encourage one another. Our front end of our business has a little bit more unique offerings than most CrossFit boxes. And it's, the CrossFit name itself has gone through changes, and the offerings of CrossFit gyms in themselves has kind of, gone through a maturation, but the zoning is a little bit goofy. So we have a couple more offerings in our front end. We have a full recovery room, which is what I'm in right now. I'm sitting right next to our infrared sauna. And we have compression boots here available as a free amenity for all of our members. And we also have a full-time massage therapist, Jessica. She's fantastic. She CrossFits with us. I would say that our CrossFit program is a bit progressive in the sense of CrossFit, but more traditional in the sense of strength and conditioning. A lot of our, 60% of our dollar is spent on accessory work, just little things. And we're doing prime mover work and heart rate work, all that stuff when we talk about programming. And then, the other side of our business too is, a large amount of personal training, where, the way that I kind of present personal training is, if Mo, you were looking to, start add a physical component to a sedentary lifestyle, and you went and you're like, all right, I don't know where to start. I'm going to go into Barnes and Noble, and which used to be what's called a bookstore, where you can go and buy these hard copies.
What are those?
Paper. I know, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. You would actually drive or even walk or bike or transit to this place, but you go into the bookstore, right, and then you go into the into the exercise or the recreational side of it, and you see, all right, there's a Pilates book, there's a marathon running book, there's a CrossFit book, and then there's another book with your face on it, and it says Mo's Training 2020. And, your program from right where you are, right this pin drop on the map location to where you want to go. And that's what our personal training is. It's completely custom fit to exactly what you're trying to accomplish. And we have people from all different walks of life, people with, they've come out of surgeries in the past and, want to feel free and have physical freedom. And then people that are just trying to increase their performance. I just got done coaching a gal that is she's getting ready to break some national records in weightlifting, and then has the potential, whenever the world opens up for international weightlifting, to go and compete for the United States in her Asian weight category as a masters female weightlifter for a medal. And she's like tuned up super well for it. And the unfortunate part is we just don't know when it's going to open up. So she's just chomping at the bit to go and destroy some kilos. So yeah, that's essentially our business from top to bottom in the rough draft sense. But yeah, we're here in Tualatin, Oregon, CrossFit BYB. Just drop us a note, and we still help people outside the area. I'm not shunning, people that want to reach out to us and are looking for help, because that's the name of the game for us. We just want to help as many people as possible. But
do you offer any like online types of help?
Yeah, when I was just doing personal training only, and we didn't have the actual facility, I was just training in a boutique. I had more of the online presence. It's not my passion to do, this mass online. I'm sure that there's a big market for it, but I really crave the one-on-one interaction. I think that there's so much communication that gets lost, whether it's just, lack of insight or lack of, your ability to read somebody, or full communication that gets lost in text or email, or even I think, Zoom is a great platform, but still it's hard to read like your heart rate and your breath rate, and, how you're thinking, and how you're reacting to what I'm saying, and how you're giving me information. There's a lot that gets lost in that. And to say it's the same is, I think, truthfully, it's an abomination to what this industry can really do for people. Not that, people don't get results, and there's not a virtual community. There's a lot of online offerings and teams that I think are doing a good job, and I commend those people. It's not necessarily my passion. But yeah, we've done online training in the past, and program design and all that. And I still do a bit of that specifically for weightlifting. It's just not kind of my main focus. As my business expands and grows, and we can have, more management and more back end work on our business, it frees me up to do that. It might be an offering. It might just be, something that I don't really ever pursue. But yeah, I really crave the, just that one-on-one, or in that group that literally in the same room, physical interaction. So yeah, not right now, but I'm not, closed off to it. It has to be more the right person, I would say, rather than, somebody that's driven and has access, and it's going to be much more of a Viking, marauder soldier on their own for me to really trust putting that stuff out there. Otherwise, like, it's not going to be a good use of my time and be a frustration for that person, and not a good use of their time or finance
Totally.
either. So yeah, I know it's spooky to say that, or probably hear that in the age and the era, especially with all the COVID stuff. But I mean, I want to be in front of people, and I want people in front of me.
I mean, I agree with you 100%. I think the only way that something like that can work is that if they have, a lot of drive and are disciplined, and, the want is greater than the need. I just wanted to add to that, everybody that's listening, Coach Leeper was literally, I think, my very first personal trainer. But what he did for me was that he opened my eyes to a whole new world of training and understanding, far different from what the norm and that has been, popularized by mediocre trainers and philosophers in the field. His vast knowledge is so insane that even just to pick his brain would do more for you than spending thousands of dollars with someone that claims to be a fitness guru on Instagram. I want to throw that out there, because what I see online is an absolute joke.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think there's some stuff out there, but it's been such like a tough, like, people trying to just make it such a money grab thing. And you just lose authenticity. You lose reality, and there's just a bunch of just shysters in the game. I mean, to tag on to that, I've probably spent, I don't know, including my degree, probably about $200,000 on just seminars, certifications, recertifications, traveling to meet and hang out and learn directly from Charles Poliquin and other, world-class PICP, which at the time it was a gold standard. You couldn't beat it. And still those guys that are like the old school Poliquin international certification program, those level 5 dudes, like, they know their stuff. And you don't really see a whole lot of like them in the media, outside of like Preston Green, the strength coach for the Florida Gators basketball team, just because of the conglomerate machine that University of Florida is. They're in the field. They're freaking smashing and knocking out their clients and their sessions, and they're actually putting in the work, as opposed to they don't have the time or the desire to just sit there and talk about doing the work. So yeah, no, right. I mean, the cream will rise. And it's funny you said that, like, all those years ago. Now I moved here in 2008. So yeah, it's been 12 years since I met you. I would probably say my knowledge base compared to now is like maybe like 2% from.
I believe it. I believe it. Would you say that the PICP, that training methodology, would you say even today, even though Charles Poliquin, God rest his soul, has has left the earth, do you still think that still is the number one, as far as, like, let's say someone wants to get into what you're doing? Okay. They want to get into the fitness regime.
Yeah. It's not without faults either. I think that the first two levels, the upper body and the lower body modules, are fantastic starts, better starts than, a lot of the competitors out there. That I took too, but it probably had it was one of the first ones that, I took. So it had the most influence on me at a young age, which, your first certification typically will have that influence on you. But like for like somebody that's, wanting to train people properly and not, fry people and injure people, and, learn through the school of hard knocks and really get some good information. Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. I think that, whether you're training athletes or you're in a CrossFit system, I think that Charles' system was a little bit, a lot of it was the first introduction of Ian Danny's tempo based, right? So you've got your actual timing and your speed on how you're moving a barbell. So somebody squats like, the old, the most go-to tempo with, in that you at least learned in the level 1, level 2 PICP was like a 401. So that's 4 seconds eccentric, no pause, 1 second up, no pause in the top. And you learn to manipulate tempos, all that, but actually taking the time and attention into account of your training programs. And, that was the first that I'd heard of it. And obviously he didn't make it up, but he's one that definitely popularized that in the training. But, where I think it fell short a little bit was the understanding and the use of, and that was further in the modules, level 3, level 4, and then level 5 is just more of a verification of your status as a gold medal or a world champion coach of an athlete in a proper discipline sport. So you couldn't be a PICP5 with a bunch of gold medal stamp collectors under your belt.
Right.
But adding the explosive movements and learning how to properly administer and use the Olympic lifts, I think, is fantastic. The Olympic lifts especially are, I think that they tend to be very polarizing, but just like any tool, to a guy with a hammer, everything's a nail. So if you've got, only one go-to or one certification, you only view the world through that lens, or, in that looking at, Charles used to say, somebody that didn't have an understanding or didn't have experience or didn't have multiple certifications, he was looking at the world through a straw, and that you're not seeing the full world for what it is. So I think that, taking that lesson and, applying the Olympic lifts and learning how to do the Olympic lifts. And I've spent a ton of time and money, learning from the best, that I could find, learning and still study it. Like there's still technical stuff that I personally work on as an athlete or as a coach that, are very beneficial. So yeah, I mean, I think that's probably, and still those first two modules are just as competitive because all the information is the same. Biology hasn't changed. We haven't adapted out of, needing posterior chain strength and rotator cuff work and, scapular retraction, all those things for our day-to-day life. But it's, very high quality. And I think that you can supplement that, based on what your desires are as a coach in whatever, I think you combine that with like a USA weightlifting or a Catalyst athletics, which I've done both. Weightlifting course, like you're going to learn some fantastic stuff that, gives you a different view of the same component and allows you that many more tools in your tool chest to troubleshoot and to, create variety and keep creating, demand and stimulus and growth in your clients.
I think that's the biggest, and from my view, from my lens, from my perspective, the greatest fallacy that I've noticed outside of your business is that CrossFit gyms, at least the coaches or the owners, and this could have been, I didn't really start, this is from like a couple years ago. So I don't know what's going on today, but from what I saw a couple years ago, maybe a year ago, a lot of them tend to not have the background that you have in strength training to be able to teach proper movement patterns, particularly with the Olympic lifts, which in my opinion have been the ones that really lead to injury far faster than like deadlifting or squatting. To be able to take some load and throw it overhead with improper technique is like, oh my God. I've seen some crazy things. So, and that to me separates you from the majority, right? Is having that expertise and that knowledge base to be able to apply that. Like you said, you have different lenses that you've been able to go and look through and adapt and learn all these things, which is incredible to me because I don't think most people spend that kind of time into really honing their craft unless they want to reach the level of mastery. I think most people just want to cruise by, especially in the form of business, just to be able to make money and go on to the next thing or whatever it is. But you truly are trying to perfect your craft, even though there is no perfection in the world that we live in. But to really achieve the level of mastery is incredible to me. Like I am always enamored by it. And I appreciate that.
Yeah. There's we're talking about fees and investments of training. There's a couple of stories. So there's a gal that I think this is in the 50s or the 60s. She's walking down the street in France, and she was kind of an art buff, liked art, followed artists, and lo and behold, in a sidewalk cafe, they're sitting having a cappuccino, and doodling in his book is Pablo Picasso. The lady just about explodes. Oh my gosh, you're my favorite. I love all of your work. Would you do me the honor and the favor of doing me a quick sketch? Maybe you could do it on a napkin. So he says, thank you. Yeah, no problem. Pulls out the napkin and just goes, gives it to her and says, that'll be $100. And she goes, why was it $100? It took 10 seconds. And Pablo goes, no, it took 40 years to get to that point of mastery. So, you certainly, get what you put in and you invest, just like anything else, is somebody that's, and that's the tough part about, some of the functional fitness and the CrossFit boxes is that it's a very low barrier for entry. Do a certification,
Yeah.
Sign an affiliate agreement for a year, pay your fee, go get a lease, buy some equipment. Hey, oh my gosh, I was a coach. I thought you were a plumber. Last month you were a plumber. Like, nah, change. So yeah, that's a very dangerous position for somebody to walk into. And yeah, you got to have passion for sure. And I think a lot of that, the success of those box owners that just were, grinders and bros and just had a passion just for the physical culture, created a lot. But that's also, they burned a lot of people. I mean, the founder himself, originally had people, oh, you can't do a pull-up strict. Like, all right, well, let's just bounce off your connective tissue and do a bunch of kipping pull-ups. And lo and behold, there you are. Like, that's a really dangerous place to be in. And we don't do hardly any of that in our gym. People have to be able to do 5 strict body weight pull-ups to be able to even, start a kipping. I don't even think kipping's that fantastic.
I was going to say, what is the benefit of that? Like, I see kipping pull-ups and I cringe.
Yeah, I mean, if you're very well developed and you can do 20, 25 strict pull-ups at body weight, like, don't worry about kipping. I mean, for me, I think my biggest set of kipping is like 35 unbroken, which isn't a ton. There's, those elite games level dudes are doing, I would say Cody Anderson could be 75 plus because he's got a ton of gymnastics experience. His body weight is not very high, and his limb length, his torso length, and his body dimensions are just short. And that's why, Matt Fraser's a freaking world champion. He's super strong, super tough, super fit, but also he's got the dimensions. If he's doing 100 pull-ups and each pull-up is a foot of movement, he's got 100 feet, where a guy that's, got arms that are twice as long, he's doing 200 feet of work. So it's dangerous when you walk into a box like that and somebody's just, throwing the wads on the, even if they don't even do their own programming. And that was, again, CrossFit's blown up big time and it's going through its changes, but, it originally just started with hard work, and then you got to kind of polish and take away, what was bad, what was injurious, what was good, and hone and develop it. Yeah. So, I mean, we hardly do any kipping around here unless it's somebody that's, very strong, very seasoned, has great mobility, pays a ton of attention to their mobility. I personally don't do a whole bunch of kipping or chest to bars, in multiples like that aren't strict. My overhead positioning is really, really tight when I do a set of, in a workout that's got 50 kipping pull-ups. So to answer your question, the benefit of it, I mean, they're just using, the kipping's using the upper body in a conditioning sense. That's all it really is. But you're, to a guy that squats, 500 for 10 reps, for them to bust out a set of 20 at 315, that's not that big of a deal. And then same thing with the upper body too. So as long as the tissue's strong, it's not that big of an issue. But it just depends on what you're trying to work with and what you're currently working with. I don't think long term it has really any true benefits to it. I mean, and in the beginning too, like, CrossFit boxes were, helping chiropractors buy bigger and bigger houses. Because of that, there's no compliance on the back end. It's just like, all right, output, go do, 21, 15, 9 thrusters and pull-ups, and then we'll just see you tomorrow. And then people can't even scratch their heads because their arms are so tight and their lats and shoulders are so glued together. So yeah, it's just a tool. But you got to know when to use it and how to use it and how to apply it and when to allow people to use it, as opposed to just throw it on the whiteboard and 3, 2, 1, go. And we're going to see what happens and pick up the broken pieces as they fall.
What's your, I appreciate that. What would you, I just lost the question. Oh, what do you see? What do you see your company being in the next 5, 10, 15 years? What is your vision?
Yeah, I mean, we'd like to be in multiple locations. It's tough to say right now. If I would have a better, clearer answer to that in January. We've just been solid continual growth since really day one here. But the last 90 days have been an interesting position to be in, just in general as a small business owner. I wish I had a little bit better answer for that. And we're going through a lot of analysis and as far as what we want to do. And, so yeah, I think there's a lot of flex, but we'd still like to be multiple locations, multiple, facilities, multiple states down the road. I think there's a great market for great coaching and, quality results and, good leadership and people that care about one another. I don't think that's why I don't think the online coaching for me, it's not as fulfilling, but I think that the in-person component is always going to have, incredible value to it. Just, I think people crave that because you can tell when somebody cares about you, and having those relationships are really incredible. I'm not saying that, people pay me for friendship. That's the last thing I want them to do. They didn't come in and know me as a bro in the beginning and decide to give me money. They came in because, they had a need and saw a service of value and, paid an agreeable fee at the end of the day. So, I mean, your service has to match, your results have to match your service.
Did I lose your audio? Or are you good?
No, good.
Oh, cool. Sweet. Okay. I guess just to wrap up, one of the questions that I get predominantly constantly actually is morning routine. It's a big one. I tend to ask a lot of my guests what their morning routine is. You in particular, I will find very interesting, and I think a lot of people are going to find very interesting. If you wouldn't mind divulging that, what maybe one of your morning routines or one that you're currently using?
Right. Optimal morning routine, or just kind of the daily as, I mean, your version of optimal.
Right. Okay. Like, what would you like to
yeah, in a perfect world where it would actually, truthfully, it would change throughout the seasons, so as you want to be able to get up when the sun gets you up. So your circadian rhythm is just like, perfect. So you're going to be sleeping more in the winter. You're going to be sleeping less in the summer. In the fall and late in the summer, the berries are going to grow. So you're going to eat more carbs. And then throughout the summers, it's totally okay to find and have that. So there's fluctuation, but to answer your question is, the reality of what I do business wise. I'm up at 0500 every day and usually out of the house by 5:20. So first thing, I wake up and my alarm's actually, it's a sunrise alarm. So our room is pitch black. It's usually 70 to 65 degrees in there. I sleep on a grounding mat. So to deplete myself of any kind of extra electrons in my body, so I sleep better. It's like I'm sleeping actually on the earth. The sunrise alarm starts to turn on, so a little bit of light enters the room at about 4:50, 4:55. I pretty much always wake up with that, and then at 5 o'clock the alarm would go off. Get up, first thing I do is go and have a little cocktail of water, one part, or I guess a half part lime juice, half part of apple cider vinegar, down that with, and I put some glutamine and glycine in there, powdered glutamine in there. And then my coffee's already made, get the coffee concoction going, get up, go to work. I would say probably what I've added that I've really enjoyed, and I think it's a lot of guys in my shoes would probably benefit. After I get done training the 6 o'clock client, I do devotionals with my wife at 7 o'clock. So for a half an hour, we're going through the Word, and we've got 3 devotional books that we work with, and then just make sure that we're constantly honoring and blessing God with all our relationships and thoughts and intentions. I'd probably say that's kind of clears up the morning, and then I train and coach and do all that throughout the day. But I'd say the morning routine every day, day in, day out, whether I'm in the gym, is that, and then with devotionals, depending on whether I'm training or not. So that's probably been the best thing. I do a grateful log as well, but I think the devotionals is a little bit more powerful because it's intent of it. It's actually inspired word of God for us. So yeah, God-fearing, red-blooded American that's, has been blessed and honored to do what I do. And, I would be a fool to say that I've done it all on my own. That's this absolute truth.
Amen to that, man. That's incredible. I'm glad that we got the opportunity to speak. I've been really looking forward to releasing this, and when we got to the point where we can start editing, it was a shitstorm.
That happens, man. It's all good. Ain't nothing perfect.
Yeah. So I appreciate that. We'll get this dialed in. One final thing. You said a book. I like to always ask favorite quote, favorite book, just currently at this moment in time. You mentioned resilience. Would you stick with that answer?
Dude, resilience is good. It's super good. The most, gosh, I haven't gifted that one yet. I need to order some copies. I would say Resilience, probably the book that I've gifted the most is a book called With God in Russia. And there's another offshoot of that called He Leadeth Me. It's about a Jesuit priest that after the First World War, after the Russians had killed off all of the religious workers, the Pope said, we need to replace all these murdered priests in the Far East. And so this dude at 18 years old said, that's my calling. I'm going to go be a Jesuit priest in Russia. And so it's this tale of him becoming that, learning Russian, getting over to Russia. And then within the first, 48 hours, he gets arrested and thrown in the Russian gulags. And it's just a story of just the human spirit and human will and perseverance and being grateful for terrible circumstances, that you may have as a human, but overcoming those and giving it, seeing it as a blessing. I've probably gifted that one more than any other book. I buy 5 copies at a time.
That's incredible. I just added it to my Amazon cart.
One book in my office. If you come by, you can have it.
Okay, I appreciate it. One book in particular that I read this year, just recently, the past few months, is Willpower Doesn't Work by Benjamin Hardy.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever read it, but pretty powerful.
Totally. Yeah, I think willpower is a fuel, and
yeah,
you definitely have to invest in it and use it. Yeah, no, I'll look that up. Good exchange there.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Well, I appreciate your time, brother. I will get this edited quickly and get it posted, send you the links. Everybody out there listening in La La Land, I want to get this to 10,000 plays, so please share, like, sub. Send it to your loved ones, your family members, your best friends, your girlfriend, your wife, partner. And I appreciate you all listening. And Jared, thank you so much, my man.
Thanks, man. My pleasure. I'll talk to you soon, Mo.
Bye-bye.